Good evening, everyone. Tonight is the Town Council, Wednesday, March 18th, 2020 Town Council meeting. If we all can stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We're on to number 2 for visitors. We have a big crowd, so apparently we have no visitors today. So, Oh, sorry. So on the phone here with us tonight also is Tim Guerra, Dennis Donovan, and Christine Gupil. Move on to number 3, which is the approval of the minutes for the March 4th, 2020.
I'll make the motion to approve minutes.
A second. Any comments or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Good. All right, on to number 4, which is appointments. So we move right along on that because there are no appointments for tonight. Moving on to number 5 is the Town Council policy for vacated seats. So Mary had sent this out earlier today, so everybody had got a draft, I'm hoping.
Excuse me, Mary, did you print up any extras?
I did.
Okay, may I? Oh, thank you.
Everybody good? Okay, so if everybody's reviewed this, I guess we'll just open it up and have some discussion if anybody has any questions, concerns, or comments about the policy as is.
As is, or?
If you want to change it, we can make corrections, or I mean, open for anything that we may want to change.
Can I just say something? I was a little confused by the 14-day period. The town council shall take no action till to fill the vacancies until 14 days have passed. 14 days from the day that we received their resignation or the notification from the town clerk. And I'm thinking if we use a format like that, isn't it going to kind of be something you have to constantly keep track of?
Yeah, so what we've done is put the blue book on the website. So it's there, so everybody can
Right.
obviously take a look at that. We're going from the date that the resignation is handed into the town clerk's office as the start
That
date.
isn't going to be a little confusing to keep up with and to stay on top of?
So the policy is, it's that part of it's not going to change, because once the town clerk's office gets the resignation, they'll send an email out, which they always normally do now. So there's an addition to the Green Party that will have that email included in that distribution. So that will go out as soon as the resignation.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm just concerned that if somebody resigns on the 1st, and somebody resigns on the 5th, and someone resigns on the 11th, that it's going to turn into this rolling fiasco of who keeps track of what needs to be filled when. Mary,
Yes.
Are you saying I volunteer?
I will keep track.
Oh, we're good then.
So
Really?
the email will go out, and then Mary will get notification of it as well. We'll have the blue book updated like a live document that'll be there. So everybody will be aware of it.
So we could have appointments on every agenda.
Appointments will stay as an open item on the agendas, correct? Going forward.
Okay, all right.
Chris, on number 6, I assume when you, in the last line, you go for other interested individuals, unaffiliated can certainly throw their hat in as well.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It's open to unaffiliated and anybody. The policy, not policy, but how it works now is obviously you come from your recommended party and you're brought forth as a candidate. I wanted to make sure that it's open to everybody.
Right, so if it's not a Republican, not a Green Party, not a Democrat, but just someone unaffiliated would like to participate, he or she can.
Correct. It could be a Republican that's not on the RTC.
And that's what you're covering when you mention that.
Covering everybody. It's open to everybody. It's fully transparent.
So Chris, one last question. Is there a maximum from one party?
Hang on one sec. We have to meet the minority rules as it relates to that.
Okay, still,
Yep.
that's
a state statute.
Even appointed?
Correct.
Okay.
Christine here. Just perhaps we should just put the term unaffiliated, Democrat, Republican, Green Party, unaffiliated, just so that it doesn't look like anybody's being excluded. unless there's a reason that you don't want to.
No.
And I'm not understanding.
The town clerk, the process that was in place currently was that the town clerk would send an email to those parties because they're an official party and they have representatives from each party. Whereas the unaffiliated, not an official party, and obviously, we know that we want to get it out there. That's why we're also doing, something as a live document that's on the town website where they can be made aware of it. We'll post it to Facebook, we'll post it to the website, and we'll do the best we can to get the word out that these positions are open.
Mr. Chair, excellent policy, comprehensive, refers to state statute when required. I agree with Christine. I think we have to include unaffiliated on this as well, but I think this is wonderful, and the credit to Merit of keeping this up to date. But I think this is great.
Thank you.
I just have one little thing that I think may be a typo. On the back page, under number 1, it says, "Town council shall fill by appointment a vacancy in any and all elected town offices, including the Board of Education, within 30 days from filling of the vacancy." Is that supposed to be filing of the vacancy? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
And you made that perfectly clear, the elected versus the appointed officers.
Right.
Right, no, it's just, I couldn't make it work when it said fill.
And then last thing, Mr. Chair, about the subcommittee interview candidates, and we're talking as if this is overflowing candidates, but how would we determine what that subcommittee would be?
That was sort of open to conversation. I'm glad you brought that up because we did have a conversation about it. My feeling is to have the whole town council speak to the people that want to be on the boards and commissions as opposed to doing a subcommittee, which then would relate to, we're going to go based upon the subcommittee's recommendation to the town council. Then it becomes a little bit, that becomes a little squirrely as a process for me, as for transparency purposes. So opening it up to the council, me and Mary had a discussion as maybe when these come in, where we do maybe 6:30, we can meet with the candidates for these appointments so that they can, so we're not waiting for another meeting to appoint them. So that way, if there are people, they come in at 6:30, we speak to them, we vet them at that meeting. Under appointments, we can appoint them at that meeting should we come to a decision.
Excellent.
Any other questions? Okay, so I guess other than the typo that will be fixed, if there's a motion to accept this as the draft policy for appointed boards, subcommissions. Second?
Yeah, second.
Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you very much. To number 6, the senior task force update. So I met with Elizabeth and Stan from the estuary. They requested to sit down. They had spoken to Carl. They also requested to speak to me. So I met with them Wednesday. Had a nice conversation with them as far as what...
I'm sorry, Chris, who did you speak with?
Elizabeth Goldstein, and then
Okay.
Stan Miglione, I think is his last name. They're both from the estuary,
Okay.
from the board. And
Thank you.
so we talked about a lot of things. Talked about the survey that was done already. What we left the meeting kind of hoping to get through and get some answers on is kind of deep. Further into what we need for programs for the seniors. Okay, so we're talking about the senior center and putting together something like that, but we need to kind of step back from that philosophy, I believe, and go after what do the seniors want. We get to do a more comprehensive, maybe look into what they want, what programs they want, what uses would they want to see for the senior center. And the thoughts with the estuary as well is they provide a lot of meals and there's things that they provide over in Old Saybrook. But, through all of this, some of it is that we do have maybe some places right here in town right now that the seniors can utilize. If there's issues of they want to play cards or they just want to get together or they want to have a place to go. So it's kind of, how do we find out from them what they want? The ones that are going to Old Saybrook, the ones that are going to, Madison, why are you going there? And if we had a senior center here, what would you like to see in that senior center? And would you even come to that senior center? Or do you go to the other towns because you have friends in those towns? So
are you saying to create a survey of these individuals at this point?
just want to have a conversation of it. I think at this point, putting together like a task force or a subcommittee, I don't know, we've kind of done that, so
Well-
we've,
Like I'm saying, last meeting was Aldea Salva is very well versed in what other towns have that a good chunk of seniors would like to see in Clinton. Honestly, I think a great place to start with, well, you've spoken
yeah, we
with
spoke to
her,
her, yep.
to bring
That's what I
her
mean, so I
into
mean,
the
again,
conversation.
having these conversations with, a lot of different parties, because some people have a set, requirement of things that they would like to see. And there's another group, hey, we might want to see these things. So we're trying to get to the point of what you would like to see us provide to the seniors. I think everybody, go ahead, Christine.
Sorry, I'm going to keep cutting up. I'm just going to make a suggestion. I think it's North Stonington changed their charter to streamline this exact issue. They condensed their human services with their park and rec and the library and all that. So everything, all the programming fell under one umbrella. Now, I'm not suggesting that we change our charter to do that, but what I would suggest start to have just the internal conversations with the library, with park and rec, with the Estuary Council, with human services, with some of those other subcommittees to get a good assessment of where they're hearing the lapses are. Instead of reaching out to the community first. I think you need to hear from internally, because I certainly know that there was a lot of issues that they had raised, and that there's a lot of collaboration that could take place on the town side, but it just takes some streamlining and some communication. So as a first step, that would be my recommendation.
Yep. When I had the meeting with the Estuary, they agreed that, and they I guess had preliminary conversations with some people at the library, and had discussions about what they could offer the seniors over there, and that what they can do right now. Because again, the senior center concept, I understand, but we need to kind of step back from that talk and kind of just go after what they really need and what they really want and what we can offer them right now as it stands. Because again, this process of a senior center is not a one-year thing. This is like a 3 to 5 year event. Because there's a lot of other things that go into it. So I agree. I mean, we should talk to other parties within the town, and what they may be able to have to offer the seniors before we go to, because we have spoken to Aldea. We've spoken to some of these people that and we know what they're looking for, but it's a matter of what we might be able to offer them right now.
Chris,
Yep, Mark?
may I offer, Chris, have we considered partnering or talking to other towns, but also the YMCA does a big senior program,
Yeah.
and they are in the midst of soliciting funds to greatly expand, trying to greatly expand the Y. And the driving force behind that is their silver sneakers.
Yeah.
And I don't know what percentage, but probably well over half of their patrons are seniors.
Yeah.
And they're extremely busy and during the day. Now, not just obviously for physical activity, but their group sessions. I mean, meeting, card games. That's what
Right.
they're trying to expand.
That's what it seems that they're looking for here,
Yeah.
right?
So
Yeah, I mean, that's
we
worth
could
it.
possibly partner up with the Y.
Yeah.
I still would be open to a task force.
Yep.
I think, you said you spoke to the folks at the Estuary, and what's 50, we paid them 50?
48,000 and change, yeah.
48,000. For that, what specifically, I'd like to know the number
Yeah.
of meals we get served.
They have all.
They have all those numbers?
They're going to come. They would like to come before us and kind of give us that breakout of what all that money is and where it all goes to. So
I'd like to hear.
Yeah, I did talk to them about inviting them to a meeting so that they can give all of that stuff, because there is, I think, some misconception kind of about what they do and what they offer, and some of the stuff that they do. So I mean, again, that's other than the public themselves, these are the kind of things that we kind of, those are the questions we have to ask.
And I did pay a visit over to Westbrook, and they're doing something right. It's busy.
Yeah.
Has the smell in the air of these foods being cooked. It's just a really wonderful place. Is that something down the road that we would consider? I don't know what the cost of that would be. It seemed to be somewhat affordable. It didn't seem like they had a high price, but there's card games going on.
Right.
It's very lively.
It's just a matter of, at the end of the day, are we going to have enough people to come in and fill those seats that if we do something like that, because there's a large cost. You're going to have a director, you're going to have somebody to cook the food, you're going to have coordinators, you're going to have a lot of people who's going to put together all the things that they would like to do. So that's
Would a
expensive.
task force at least confirm with them and get some ideas
Yeah.
as to what's going on, what's working, because it seems to be working quite well.
I guess it's just a matter of, right, what, you know, as far as the task force goes and kind of, who we want to put on it. And I guess if we give them a directive from the council as far as what we want to see or what we want to hear.
Timeline.
Right,
report
as
back.
opposed to just, hey, so-and-so wants to play cards every day. I want a couch in the, so I mean, there's other things. I think if there's a clear directive on what information we want in order to make a decision, that what's best for the town at this time. Because I completely agree that we have to show, we have to be more informed and we have to show that we want to be involved in that process. So.
Just an FYI as well, we did, Elizabeth Goldstein, myself, and I'm trying to remember, there's a number of other people who did meet with the YMCA in Westbrook, and they're very open to the idea of collaboration with town. So, but I think you also need leadership on this. You're going to need one person as the conduit for a lot of this information as well. So you might start to think about that as well. So sort of an internal committee, and then one person who's able to sort of lead programming.
Yep. Okay. I mean, at this point, I think maybe we'll just, maybe we'll do that. We'll come up to maybe the next meeting and try to maybe talk with Carl about it as well and come through just a list of the items that we would like to see answered, or the questions we would like to see answered before we set up this task force, so that there's a clear directive on what we're looking for, so that we can be, give some answers that are best suited for the town here and what the people here want. Everybody good with that?
I'm happy to help if you would like to additional,
Okay.
sit down and chat about it.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. So we'll leave that at, for the next meeting, we'll circle back with that one. Moving on to number 7, which is the Middlesex Hospital Fourth Amendment to Agreement. That is where...
I'll make a motion to approve that, or do you want to talk about it first?
We can make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the
The
Fourth Amendment to the agreement with Middlesex Hospital.
Everybody get this, review it, have any questions about it? Was there a second? Yeah?
So moved.
Okay.
Oh, so, excuse me, so made.
So any discussion on this? Very simple. I mean, it's, basically giving Carl the authorization to engage into this.
And the discussion that I would offer is that when we initially signed this contract with them a few years ago, they gave us a plan of cost increases for year after year after year, and it's a great blessing that they haven't had to enact that, and we're basically still paying what we paid either year 1 or year 2. So I'm very happy to see that they did not increase this cost for the year.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All in favor to authorize Carl to engage into the Fourth Amendment agreement with Middlesex?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Referral of John Street to the local traffic authority. So there's been some talk at Planning and Zoning the last meeting or the meeting before where they were discussing making John Street a dead-end street. At this point, obviously, Planning and Zoning, it was put before them, but we would need to make a directive and maybe give a referral to the traffic authority and have them look into this to see if this is a possibility at that location. So all this is going to be is a referral of John Street to the local traffic authority in town.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, next
Yeah,
up.
the only comment I had, sorry, just jumping in quick enough, was to make sure the consultant planner is involved in the process with the local traffic authority, just to make sure everybody's in the same loop.
Yep.
Fire service would also have to be involved also.
All right, on number 9 is the authorizing of the resolution for the local bridge program supplement application. Pleasant Valley Road, bridge over Nantucket River. Again, a referral to authorize Carl to engage into this application agreement. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a
Yep.
question. So these preliminary costs here, are these the costs that were listed in 2017? These proposed costs or preliminary costs that are on this, the supplemental application, the second page of the supplemental application? Is
Yeah,
this
they have-
2017? Is that how much it's gone up in 3 years?
That would have been how it initially got started, and then now they're currently updating it to reflect
30% more.
construction expense, and that triggers an increase in contingency at the line.
That's crazy.
It's within what we have already available for funding, and it's a cost share with the state, so it's increasing the state's participation.
Yeah, time is money, so, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question, Dennis here.
Yep.
Carl, do we have money set aside for that project?
This was in the authorized bonded projects that went to referendum a few years back. So you have the authorization already in place for it to be funded out of bonding.
Okay, I guess what I'm saying is, did we cover enough with this increase that Carol is speaking about?
Between what you have specifically for the bridge, and then there's another bucket of authorized projects that were just general bridges. So between the two sources of funds, you have enough money to address it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? On to Finance Director, financial reports.
I won't take it. All right, so everybody has a copy of this email that was also put in your folder.
Yep.
So I won't go through it in detail, but you have it there. To a brief review, I'll start with revenues. The good news is the tax collections are at 99%, which is right on par with what it usually is, what the same prior year. She did feel, the tax collector, that she at first thought that she was going to be lagging on her liens and interest, but that has been coming in stronger, so she does feel that will be on budget at the end of the year. So she doesn't feel any expenses, any problems with that. The building and the town clerk had their highest month ever so far this year in February. Unfortunately, with what's going on right now, they probably, where we expected to have some more favorable variances in there by the end of the year, those would probably be a concern right now. The town clerk is right now $29,000 under budget. I don't know if she'll be able to recover that by the end of the year, because most of that is conveyance taxes, which has to do with real estate sales, and she's concerned about that. And it's about another $14,000 with the building fees and planning and zoning fees that are under budget right now. We do have some positive revenues in other areas, though, that would make up for those shortfalls that we've talked about in the past, which is the police contracted services, which was not budgeted typically, and that's about a net of about $20,000 to the positive. And then we have another $46,000 of workers' comp, mainly due to a return of the equity from the fund, of giving us about another $46,000 positive there. And then, of course, we have investment income, which is right now running about $50,000 over budget. We did have to return $16,000 of the FEMA money that we received for the Sandy, which we knew about, and that was just because of the way that the filing was done. So the net amount from the final FEMA from Sandy is the $916,000. So the revenues, that's where they're at. There's more detail on the report that I gave you as well. The expenditures, there's nothing out of the ordinary. February is the 8th month of our fiscal year, so you would want to see budgets at about 67% of their spending. If you look at the far right column on the expenditure reports, you'll see that most of them are running in that area. Any that are a little bit over could be because meaning the full year anticipated expenses have been incurred. For example, all the debt payments have been made, so those are at 100%, or that we have encumbrances that are for anticipated expenses that they know about. So I'll just quickly go over some of the highlights. Like I said, nothing really stands out right now in the expenditures. You know, the town manager, we've talked about that before. We think that that's going to be, you know, a little bit over because of some additional salaries in that. Finance, there's about $16,000 of unspent professional fees and training, which I anticipate to use a portion of that in the fourth quarter. I talked to Carl about it. I would like to. The assessor tax collectors, they're right on budget for the 8 months. Technology is right now on budget. Some of these budgets, when I say they're right on, we are starting to do some forecasting, and we're seeing that we're over at our salary line, which is what we expected, and that's because of the settlements for the contracts that have taken place. Planning and zoning, we're tracking under budget at this time, slightly, but I think it's really more of a timing issue with how we've received the fees from the consultants. I think they usually lag about a month behind, so there's probably $8,000 of fees that are reported there. All the other budgets, you know, we still have a positive in the WPCC because we still have an open position there. General government, there's really no change there. Contingency has not changed, so that's still at 156. That makes up the main portion of that budget. Other general government, there's a lot of things underneath there, but legal is still running under budget. And talking with Carl, we probably will have some overages in the union negotiator budget. Underages, meaning we're not going to be spending all the budget for that because of the way the union contracts are being negotiated this year. We also have some unused budget. Advertising I'm projecting. Accounting is a little bit over. We talked about that last time, and that has to do more with the advisory fees that we received on the pensions. We also have some bank fees, which will start coming in, but I don't expect them to be $10,000. We are starting to see the cost of Pearson come in as well. What we've received so far is about almost $10,000 worth of fees, and what it's really for is the utilities, custodial work, and then we had to pay a little bit of money, $2,000, to rent the playground piece of land. The police right now, I'm expected to be on budget. But we will be talking with the chief on that. You know, you will see that it's the holiday pay that's left in their budget, but that will be paid out in June. That's paid twice a year. That's the second payment that we're expecting. Fire building, animal control, fire marshal, park and rec, economic development, those are all right in line. Don't expect any problems with there. Civil preparedness, he's probably going to be using his budget. He has that, which he hasn't spent yet, probably over the next few months for some needs that are coming up for him. Nothing really else to report in any of the other budgets. I expect them to be, you know, pretty much right on par. We are beginning to forecast with the department heads for their year end, so hopefully we can have something to talk about on the next meeting. The only shortfalls I right now anticipate are really in the salary lines. Some of those can be made up with line item transfers within the department budgets. A couple of them probably will need transfers outside of them, like for the communications budget and the human services budget as well. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention, we're made aware of that RSM, which who are our auditors, told us a week ago that they are not going to be able to do our audit this year, that was after they had given us a verbal promise and an estimate of the fees. They said it was due to what they're finding now is staffing constraints, so that was quite a surprise. I worked with Carl and we did get out an RFP. It was posted today for new auditing services for this year. We are a little bit late on getting this out. Typically they do go out in January, February. There are other towns that are issuing them right now, but we hope that we'll be able to get some good proposals back. The replies are due back by April 13th, and the selection could be made by May 20th, so I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that. So that was a wrench that was thrown into us. The finance department, we're making contingency plans for payroll and accounts payable to function in case that we do have to close down the town hall. So we've been talking with Carl about that as well. We're pretty certain that we'll be able to function fully with all of that. We're testing things now. That's pretty much it. I did want to just mention the investment report as well as attached to your packet, and right now we have $29 million sitting in investments. Really, $27 million of that is sitting at Bank of America. And we've earned $96,000 on that in your investment income year to date. Really up the tax collections just in place. And our fund balance and contingency, there's been no change from the department, so that's still the same. Anything else?
Questions?
Steve, you mentioned 99% tax collection percentage. Is that standard? Is that, that's,
Yes, actually she's a hair, I didn't want to split hairs on this, she's actually 99.1%, so she's actually a 0.1% ahead of where she was last year. So, yeah, she's right on. She's, like I said, the only thing that she was concerned about before was her tax liens and fees, but she actually feels, because right now there's $17,000 under budget, but she does feel that she's going to end up collecting it. She was actually surprised at how many people reacted to when she sent out late notice and things like that. She actually got a good response on that. So, anything else?
Anybody else?
All good?
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
All right, on to the chairman's report. I guess, I'm sure Carl will address it as well, but in recent events of what's going on in town, you know, I guess the good thing is that, I mean, well, unfortunately for Carl, he came into all this at once with, you know, a budget season and now the world's ending, so God bless them.
It's true.
So I think, you know, the message that we need to kind of get out to everybody and have people understand the difficulty on the town side in making decisions is that a lot of this revolves around the fact that, you know, we go by the state's executive orders. So they put executive orders in place. Those are things that we have to follow. Then the health district. So we're kind of, you know, at their mercy as far as what we should and shouldn't do in a lot of cases. You know, I understand people sometimes get frustrated, you know, when not enough is being said or a lot of messages aren't getting out there. But, you know, the difficult part is kind of stepping back, taking a deep breath as the town is, because the town still has to function. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, there's things that we still need to do. There's people that close on houses. There's people that want to pay a tax bill. There's, you know, so there's things that, you know, decisions are not easy decisions to be made. But as a whole, we have to take into consideration the town as a whole. I mean, I was saying to Mary, I mean, a lot of the seniors in this town sometimes call town hall just to hear a voice. You know, if they don't have family around and they just want to make sure that, you know, that the world is not ending and everything's going to be okay. And, you know, so those are, you know, some of the things that you have to take into consideration as well. So, you know, I get it. It's hard on everybody. Nobody likes it. The kids being out of school and stuff that's going on now is very difficult. So, you know, I know people are, you know, I'm sure reaching out to some of the council members and talking to them about things. Patience, you know, is, I know an easy thing to say, but a hard thing to do sometimes, but we really do just need to be patient and kind of let this kind of play through. And, you know, I know ultimately we'll make the best decisions for the best interest of the town itself. That's my chairman's report. On to the town manager's report.
So it's been a busy second half of May, or March. So before speaking to the COVID topics, so as you heard from Sue, our prior auditor left us in a little bit of an odd spot, to be generous, by withdrawing their commitment to be our auditor for another year. So we are in what is a fairly aggressive schedule in order to go through seeking, vetting, and then ultimately selecting a new auditor for the town's books. So we were able to quickly put together an RFP. Ultimately, that will come to the council as an action item for you to make the appointment of the successful firm that will go through the vetting process. It's just perhaps not going to move at the speed that we would have liked it to have moved forward. Coming up at your next meeting in April, there needs to be a conversation regarding the lease that was given to the Chamber of Commerce for the building that they're utilizing. There is, at least for the tail end of their lease, the need to make a modification. There are issues with their ability to fulfill the terms of that lease, and particularly as a membership-based organization, we've got a lot of local businesses that are starting to feel the pinch. That has knock-on effects to the chamber and its own internal fundraising stated for the spring. So we're working through some issues now with the executive director of the chamber, and and hope to have something before you for April to take some consideration on. Their lease does expire at the end of May, so we do have to negotiate and settle up a new lease arrangement with them for the office space that they're utilizing in the building next door, which the town is also using for meeting space. As a follow-up to your prior discussion on the town historian, establishing roles and responsibilities, reporting, and more importantly, a term that really should be codified and made something that's more fixed within an ordinance rather than indefinite based on a resolution. So I've spent some time putting together an ordinance and running it past town council for your consideration, which would memorialize more of the conversation that you've had and make it an official position that is appointed, has the 5-year term, and lays out the roles and responsibilities of the town historian as you recently adopted. There'll also be an ordinance coming to you revising the historic district. There were some changes to the boundaries that was in process previously. It's now kind of worked its way through the mechanics of having it be reviewed. Town council has also looked at it, so that's another piece of legislation that would be teed up for town council consideration. Moving into COVID-19 territory. The day ended today without the governor issuing another emergency executive order outlining changes to state statute. It has been communicated that there should be one or more coming this week or the near term, which would be more specific to local government operations. There's been a heavy emphasis on education first, and obviously you've seen the orders about closing of facilities in the private sector. Certain things have not been waived, so land use, that application process is driven by state statute. Those timeframes have not been modified, so that puts a certain amount of pressure on applications and the need for public hearings and the like to meet those deadlines. The expectation is that there'll be some sort of relief provided on that front. There's been almost a uniform push across all municipalities that that's something that has to be addressed. So we're hoping that the governor will release more information giving us the ability to plan operations better. How we move forward in terms of increasing social distancing, electronic meetings as an option were communicated out to the boards and commissions. Right now, people have opted to cancel their meetings. The electronic meeting format is an option, but it carries with it a number of rules that have to be followed. So in those particular cases, and for your own edification, if the council is ultimately going to go in that direction, we believe we have the technology solution that allows it to happen. However, you have to give the public the means to log in and watch, listen to the conversation that takes place. Either a transcript or a recording of the event needs to be made available within 24 hours. The agenda and all agenda materials need to be made available 24 hours in advance. And then when you're speaking, you have to identify yourself each and every time you speak. So it has some quirks to it, but it is theoretically an option as we get to points of business having to be conducted, but doing it in a virtual fashion to encourage social distancing. Given the fact that a lot of the cancellations and changes in rhythm have been described as indefinite, we have things in our charter which require some specificity, and we can't always do everything on an indefinite time horizon. Most specifically is the budget and the public hearing, as well as what would then become the adoption process by taking it to the annual town meeting. So one of the governor's orders over the weekend was to allow for an extension of the budget deliberation, budget submittal process before it goes to the legislative body. In the terms of our charter, the legislative body in that particular instance is the annual town meeting. So the budget hearing is a vehicle for the town council's continued deliberation before it's finalized and submitted to the annual town meeting. After talking to the health district, the strong recommendation is to cancel the public hearing set for April 8th and invoke this extension in order to provide more time till we get further down the road, and hopefully things are better. The governor's extension allows for deadlines to be pushed for actions that take place before May 15th. So if you pushed the public hearing out to the beginning of May, then annual town meeting starts to get pushed to June, and it becomes a busy June if everything is all free and clear on the health front. As part of the governor's executive order, the council would have to act to amend the budget schedule. So ultimately, I'm going to need some action out of the council to amend the budget schedule to declare a different date for the public hearing, and then obviously setting in motion what that different date will be for the annual town meeting. It's been reviewed with the health director. I had a back and forth with the town council, and I think we're all of the same mind of moving on now, away from holding a public hearing, and I think we've got the path charted clearly that it's up to the council to decide what the next sequence of events is going to be, unless there's a further extension of the governor's order on budget adoption. I would hope we don't have to cross that bridge. There was a phone call late this afternoon with Representative Courtney giving an update on the federal perspective. It came right on the heels of the Senate approving the second relief package for COVID-19. A third package is in the works as we speak. So this package was more unemployment benefits, paid leave benefits. So there's some more impact to people, not so much to the private sector. I'm not sure what the third will be. Representative Courtney was making his office available to share whatever information he had that would be beneficial to town, so that we could be aware of whatever was going to be included in the federal relief program. One of the big add-ons for funding was coming out of the Department of Agriculture to provide for funding for school lunch program, which you may or may not know that the lunch program, we're now distributing bag lunches. They're being distributed out of Morgan and out of Pearson to connect with the kids that would have gotten lunches at school at any rate. So the additional federal funding allows that program to have the resources to keep going. And I think that's it for COVID-19. Once we've got the next executive order out of the president, out of the governor, we'll have hopefully a better idea of what's going to happen with land use and extensions that can take place on their timetable. So that's it for my report.
Thank you, Carl. So in light of that, moving the public hearing for the budget from April 8th and moving it to May 6th would be the option. So if somebody would like to make a motion, we could do that right now.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So our budget public hearing then will be moved from April 8th to May 6th. All right.
Mr. Chair, can I ask Carl a couple of questions? I'm getting the emails from Senator Needleman about some of the towns in the Senate 33rd District who have declared states of emergency. Is this anything we need to consider? And if so, how do we go about doing that?
The charter gives the authority to declare a state of emergency to the council. In speaking with our emergency management director, we don't feel that that's a step that we need to necessarily take. You have a presidential declaration. Prior to that, you had a governor declaration. Both of those make us poised to get FEMA reimbursement. So a local declaration reinforces and amplifies what's already been in place coming out of the governor and now coming out of Washington. So it was not recommended that we needed to take that step. I'm not sure what the council would do if you were invoking emergency powers. There's emergency ordinances which can be acted on. We're not seeing a lot on the legislative front across the state in the form of emergency ordinances. I'm only aware of one community that passed an emergency ordinance, which was really more about limiting occupancies in rooms to control congregation of the public. The governor's orders give power to the police department in order to enforce different provisions of what he is issuing. The health department is also engaged in some of that enforcement mechanism to make sure that you've got no dine-in. If there are queues outside of takeouts, the health district is getting in position to start laying out cones to make sure that people are 6 feet apart in the line. So based on recommendation of your emergency management director, he doesn't feel that we need to take that step at this point.
Okay, and then I've been approached by a couple folks about unemployment, and I know these are stated, so I referred them to the Department of Labor and a couple of small business owners, and I did discover this again on Senator Needham's site, small business disaster relief. Are these the types of issues I would simply speak to Chris, and then move them to a state agency?
Yeah, individual concerns over unemployment is something that the individual should be pursuing with the Department of Labor as they would normally. It's probably going to result in a budget crunch for the state for making sure there's enough money for unemployment. But that's more of a Department of Labor issue. Outreach to the business community, I know the chamber is already starting to do some of the discussion, and they were spreading information to chamber members about the loans coming out of the Small Business Administration. It's not clear what the state is going to be doing by way of any kind of business benefit that kind of falls in line with what seems to be the most immediate need, which is cash flow. So it's really more the SBA giving their loans to help get people over the hump. I think the feedback I was getting out of the chamber was more a concern of how long the hump is going to be and how long businesses can float in either shutdown mode or restaurants doing takeout only, keeping their doors open. So it's a significant economic disruption to say the least.
And I do want to thank you and Mary as well for updating the town's website and showing a Facebook presence. A lot of people have already come up to me and said they thank you for that.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to number 13, which is the liaison reports.
We had the fire department feasibility study meeting last week, and we filled out a questionnaire of the current status of the fire department, whether their facilities, resources meet their current needs, do not meet their current needs, are sustainable, are not sustainable. It was an excellent exercise in honing down where the strengths and weaknesses lie in the building itself, in the utilization of that building. And as always, I've worked with the fire department several times on projects, and as always, I am impressed with their honesty and diligence about clearly stating the conditions that they work in. I have never seen them overstate or dramatize a condition that they have to benefit their needs. They are very clear spoken and honest about what their situation is. I think I mentioned this last time they took me on a tour of the building, and honestly, I would have marked things a bit more negatively than they did, but they obviously clearly understand their needs better than someone coming from the outside looking in. And it will be interesting when the results of that little survey that we all worked on are collated and to see exactly where the future needs of the department lie. So I think they're doing a terrific job getting this ball moved down the road.
Thank you, Carol. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Tim.
Yep.
I attended last Tuesday, March 10th, the Economic Development Commission meeting. Just a couple of things of note. Some of the manufacturers here in town feel that they need to become a little bit more well-known to the citizens. So they're planning some event, no date yet or event specified, but they want to give back to the community, and so be aware of that. Obviously, the career day, the STEM presentation that was scheduled for tomorrow isn't going to happen. They are looking to revise the website, and that they discussed that at the meeting. And finally, the facade improvements for Main Street. They have committed to talking to some of the owners, and their commitment right now was to discuss the potential for a state grant or including that area in a TIF presentation. So more of that will be coming forward at a later date. So those would be the highlights from that meeting.
Thank you, Tim. Anybody else?
Yeah, this here, reporting on the Board of Police Commissioners meeting, March 10, 2020. State of the department, everything seems to be going along on schedule. Their budget seems to be in line, as was previously mentioned by the finance director. There is a little concern about the communications overtime, which I understand Chief DeMaio will be in consult with the town manager to figure out a way to overcome a proposed deficit in that line item. Other than that, we had a couple of good things for the police department. There was 2 meritorious service awards and 1 letter of recognition presented to Sergeant Brian Pellegrini. The sergeant was not able to make the large meritorious awards, I guess, the week prior. So they presented him these awards at the meeting the other night. And also on another positive note, the department received a $400 donation from a Hugs for Hope blanket donation project. And also they received a donation of $15,000 worth of emergency warning equipment, which was installed on the K9 vehicle. That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dennis. Eric?
Yes, Planning and Zoning met on March the 9th, and I'm sure everyone knows about these exciting times, and voted to approve the Greylock Property Group's application in Indian River Landing. They are due to begin work this summer, and expected completion date is fall of 2021. So that's excellent news for all of us. The mini golf and cafe, that also was approved. That is going to be on the north side of Route 1, 3 West Main Street, LLC. What else? No target opening date was given for that. It's going to be a 49-seat cafe built on stilts, offering views of the wetlands and the river. And then the Unilever site, it looks as though, and correct me, I think Mr. Chairman, you were there as well, the public hearing closed. This is for the brewery. The public hearing closed at 3/2, and they withdrew that application. And then the proposed condominiums, they were granted a 35-day extension of public hearing to 4/6/2020.
Anybody else? Okay, at this point,
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
What was the date of the public hearing moved to?
May
again?
6th.
May 6th, thank you.
Anybody else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Night, stay well.
Good night, you too. Thank you, Sue.
Hey, thank you.